So welcome to Senior Services for South Sound. Normally on a Friday morning, this room would be filled with people doing enhanced fitness, but they have gone off to another room. Don't worry, they're still working on being fit. But we did think, as voters in Thurston County, we needed to hear from the candidates running for this very important position. And I'm so glad that you were able to come out and join us today. So please help me welcome this wonderful man, Clair Ferris.
Well, we'd like to welcome all of you here today, and we're very happy to have our candidates here at our forum. We're going to get the volume up, and that's better. Thank you, Eileen. Appreciate that. We're going to start with giving some rules today so that you'll understand how we're going to manage this event. Each candidate is going to be given an opportunity to have a 3-minute opening statement, and we'll have the opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement. Questions will be asked by myself, and if we have time to take questions from the audience before the closing statements, we will. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer every question, and will have 2 minutes to do so. In the meantime, if you'll keep an eye on the back of the room, there's a couple of people that you can see with the placards there. Yellow means that you have 30 seconds left to answer, and red will mean that you need to pass the mic to the next person. Note that we are filming this event with TCTV, and it will be available later for viewing. We've asked all candidates, if they would, to remain with us after the event is over, out in the foyer, where you all will have an opportunity to meet with them and ask further questions personally. So we're going to begin now with our candidate statements, and we will start with Tye Menser.
My name is Tye Menser. I'm running as a Democrat for the Board of County Commissioners, District 3. I'd like to thank the Senior Center and Senior Services for hosting this event and giving me this opportunity to present my candidacy to you. Thurston County is facing increasingly complicated problems with fewer and fewer financial resources to solve them. With 100,000 people projected to move to our county by 2040, it will only further strain our ability to provide services and protect our natural resources. I'm running because I'm deeply concerned about the lack of leadership we're getting on key issues from our county commission. If I'm elected to the county commission, I will bring a wealth of educational, professional, and personal experience to the job. I have an undergraduate degree in government from Harvard. I have a law degree from the University of California, Berkeley. I've had a 20-year legal career with a focus on criminal defense. Important because the biggest part of our county's budget is the law and justice system. I've spent the biggest part of my legal career in public service as a public defender. I spent 7 years living in rural communities in northern Alaska, representing indigenous peoples living inside the Arctic Circle and throughout the interior. I learned Spanish and spent time studying and living in Mexico, Chile, and Argentina. So I appreciate what people from other cultures can bring to our community. I served for 3.5 years on Thurston County's Water Conservancy Board, involving extensive training in Washington's complex water law. And I was raised with working class values by 4 public school teachers. That's right, 4. My parents divorced when I was 2 and immediately married other teachers. My dad was a teachers union president in the 1980s, and my wife is a kindergarten teacher right here in Olympia. My policy priorities for this campaign are: how are we going to bring 100,000 people into this county without fundamentally destroying the character of the county? How are we going to reverse 2.5 years of deficit spending under this county commission? How are we going to work as a partner with our cities in addressing the affordable housing crisis? How are we going to put clean water issues back at the top of the county's priority list, not the bottom? And how are we going to sit down with every single piece of our criminal justice system and work together responsibly to find meaningful criminal justice reform? These are my commitments to you, and I'm asking for your support so that I can get right to work on these issues for you. Thank you for having me here, and appreciate the opportunity.
My name is Jed Haney. I'm running for Thurston County Commissioner District 3. Thank you, Olympia Senior Center, for putting this together. It's very important that we have this public service for all voters to have an opportunity to hear from us. I have recently moved back to Thurston County, and after many years of considering public service, I decided to throw my hat in the ring this year to run for County Commissioner. There are many reasons why, but just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I have spent the last 4 years across the state working on implementing public policy through the newly adopted 502 cannabis regulation. That's for recreational marijuana, for those of you that aren't familiar with the 502 acronym. Recreational marijuana and medical marijuana were commingled in about 2015. So I've spent many years at both the local level, city council, county commission, county councils, and at the state legislature working on this special interest and special issue. The reason it's a special issue is because it impacts many different walks of life. And ultimately, as I mentioned earlier, cannabis, medical and recreational were commingled. So this is why I've come to offer myself to the community, because I've had an interaction at an intimate level with many different forms of government. And I know that the stopgap happens quite a bit at the local implementation level. But beyond that, and I would like to see a better management of our current cannabis policy in the county. But beyond that, I have a background in environmental awareness. My father was an environmental scientist. I grew up in the rural East Lewis County part-time and was very aware of the rural issues, specifically in a logging community and looking for new revenue streams. After that, I actually traveled quite a bit around the Pacific Northwest, growing up in Thurston County from 17 to 20, 22 approximately, and then moving around the Pacific Northwest, coming back here every once in a while. Let's see, I came back here recently 2 years ago to start my business, the business that I developed. The business is an agricultural development company, and we see that there's an issue with safe food and food access across Washington State. So I would like to see more food access through specifically farmers markets, expand those into the rural. As was mentioned before, there's a large issue with projected growth, and 16,000 of that 100,000 is in the rural, so we need to be prepared for that. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Bud Blake. I'm Thurston County Commissioner, and I'm here to ask for your support and your endorsement for 4 more years. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this job, and I got there by means of doing 25 years in the military. And then I came home and retired, and I absolutely it's a joy to serve in a county commissioner position. I say that because I threw away the protected Constitution in 27 minutes and thoroughly flew away to the protected Constitution as a soldier in the 27 minutes, and when I come home now, I get to serve the county. Been very fortunate that as an independent, I don't really have an ideology to back me up in terms of what we do in an agenda. I believe in competence and experience and added value. And that's what you're going to see in the next 4 years, and that's what we've seen in the last 4 years. Some of the things I've been able to do while in my tenure as a commissioner, the gopher, the Habitat Conservation Plan, is now solved. We just signed the first review. We're doing the second review here shortly, and we'll present that to the Fed. That was $151 million that the federal government was asking you to participate in. It's down to $15 million in 900 acres. And so that will go forward, and we'll be able to do a balance between the economy and the environment. The other item I was able to do was open up the jail. The old jail was sitting empty for nearly 5 years at $1 million a year, costing me $5 million in total. In the first 30 days, I was able to open the jail and get that going in terms of the sheriff and the other law enforcement that goes along with that. So it's your tax dollars that I'm absolutely accountable for and transparent for, and for the way we do business in Thurston County. Another thing precious to my heart is the health of people here in Thurston County. Not only is the BOCC, the Board of County Commissioners, but it's also the Commissioners of the Board of Health. And we're able to move from the rank of number 7 to number 6 in the state, and we'll move even closer to number 1 in my next 4 years. Health is everything we do, and that's why I'm here today to be able to be in front of you, because I have a concern where we are for seniors being taken care of here in the next, as the population does grow. And I want to have places where you're able to walk to and get the services and the comforts that we need in this time of day and modern day we have. With that in mind, I ask you again for your vote and your support. I look forward to the next 4 years of serving you.
I usually don't have much problem with calling you. I'm Melissa Denton, and I'm standing so I can see you and so that you can see me a little easier. And I'm the shortest one of these folks, so I need to stand. I am running for county commissioner. The reason I decided to run is because children are having to march in the streets to beg for safety for their lives in their schools. I also saw the Me Too movement happening, and it was tragic that women were coming forward and having to just talk about things that were very embarrassing and horrifying for them. But it was so heartening to see that finally consequences are happening, and people who had been doing horrible things to many people over many years from positions of power were actually finally being called to account and taken out of positions where they could continue to do that harm. And I also was motivated by the things going on in Washington, D.C. There's an awful lot that is very traumatic and very horrible. And we have a choice about how we react to that as a community, as an individual, as a voter. We can go hide in a hole and pretend like it's going to get better, and we won't have to look until it's better, or we can do something about it. I took 18 years off of politics because I had a child, and guess how old he is now? Yeah, he's 18. So I did not focus myself on politics for those years. Before that, I was a planning commissioner, I was a precinct committee officer, I was involved in things political, but I took time off from that. The time that I also have been here in Thurston County for over 30 years. I also am a lawyer, like Tye, and he and I have cases together. I do family law, and I think that family law is particularly apt as a background for dealing with people who are afraid, who are anxious about what the government's going to do to them, where their assets and their lives are going to be greatly impacted by the government. And that's the kind of people I work with at the hardest time in their lives, and I've become very good at it. I've also owned my own business for about 27 years, and that, I think, is a very good qualification that I think makes me different from the other candidates. What we're here about today is not necessarily learning details about the county commissioner and which particular policies have done what or are going to do what. You are here, I believe, so that you can figure out which person to vote for. And I'm asking that you vote for me. With my background as a business person, with my background as a family law attorney, as a mom, and yes, I think that being a woman makes a difference. Nothing against these guys, but we have plenty of those already in the government. I appreciate their service and I appreciate their contributions, but I think that women need to be there too. Boys and girls need to see that moms and sisters are also part of our government. I'm not apologetic about that, but I'm asking you to vote for me because I'm the most qualified candidate.
Housing and homelessness are major challenges across the nation, as we all know. Surveys of older adults reveal that affordable housing is one of the key concerns for our aging population. The recent Thurston County homeless census report showed that there was a 7-fold increase in homeless single adults over 65. What are your plans to increase the inventory of housing that is affordable to seniors in our community? And it'll be a question for all the candidates.
Okay, but I'm lucky I get to go to that first.
You do.
I am really grateful for that. I think it is horrifically a problem, and it is across the country, but it's far, far more here. And it is a very severe impact on seniors, but it's also on our loved ones, on our children, on our grandchildren. It is very difficult. I've been to several housing symposiums over the last months that I've been running for office, And before that, I was very concerned about homelessness issues. When I was president of the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation, I was there actually as vice president for 2 years first when the folks from Camp Quixote came into our meeting, and it was a dark and stormy night, literally, and they said, oh, we're going to be thrown off the city lot, we become a community, we seek sanctuary. They used that language, it was so cool. And we were so grateful to have the opportunity to unanimously vote yes to give them sanctuary, and we were very grateful that our church members followed through with that. And as you know, from the time that I was vice president and president, and all the time since then, Camp Quixote has turned out to be one of our successes in the area of issues relating to homelessness in our community. Our problem is that there's not enough housing. There's not enough housing that's high-end, low-end, anything. The inventory of places to rent, and we have about 50% rental use here, for instance, in the city of Olympia. There's no houses, there's no homes to rent. And of course it impacts people who are on limited incomes, like seniors. It also impacts young people, especially young people who are burdened by student loans, and that's another thing. A lot of this has to do with health. That's right, health is huge, and that's one of my primary focuses, because you can't be healthy if you don't have a place to sleep. If you can't get sleep, that's the first ingredient of health. So I'm very concerned about this. How am I going to build houses? I don't think I'm going to build houses. We have fantastic organizations in town. Government should work with them.
So the housing issue is a huge problem, not only here in Thurston County, but throughout the country. And I've been very fortunate in the last 4 years to sit on in an organization called Thurston Thrives. And in that is a sub-organization called the Housing Action Team, and I'm the chair of that. And so we have 3 teams that work on this diligently. We have a blue team, a red team, and a green team. And so we have our plan and strategy map that maps us out each month, each year, to how we're going to solve this or bring it to a level that's acceptable. And within the blue team, we have what we call incentivized housing. And we built what we call a pipeline, and now we have a hand. These 2 tools are really critical because it gives assurances to the profit, the nonprofit, and the government where surety is for putting the houses and the better land use for the pipeline. This money, this leverage money, but at least it gets you started in terms of seed monies for licensing and other aspects of getting the surety you're looking for. In the past, it's been kind of scattered all over the place, who's going to do what. But now we've got the structure, and people absolutely love it and are enthralled about getting involved in it. The other item is the HAM, it's a housing affordability model. The rent issue here in Thurston County is just through the wall, where we have a 1% vacancy rate, 2% vacancy rate. You need about a 7% vacancy rate. This HAM, in short, but time that I have explains to you, is a selection list of incentives that each jurisdiction can pick, be able to help reduce the fees and what have you, so they can bring that gap there between the middle of the supply and demand of that. And finally, the red team does all the advocacy for legislating and monies and activism so that we can get the word out of the street and to the people who need it best. So that you can have affordable housing and mixed-use housing, walkable, livable places to go to so that you can thrive and be able to see your families and have the health pieces you need.
Red team, go. So as a younger individual that has had time to travel around not just this state, but across the Pacific Northwest, this issue is national, as was mentioned. It's specifically statewide. I spent time in Yakima, I was mentioning that earlier. I spent time in King County. Both of those areas, wildly different, but are dealing with this issue. As was mentioned, the survey came out, but the unofficial number is actually up in the 1600s. So it's quite larger than the 7-fold increase. So what do we have to do now? So I'm glad there's activity and action that has been happening, but it's not actually solving the issue. And there's 2.5 renters for every available house. So on a rental issue, we need more than just a vacancy rate, we need more affordable housing. So how do we plan for that? As commissioners, it's our job to plan for long-term zoning and use. We need to incentivize affordable housing through developer relations. Incentivization can happen in many different ways, and I won't digress into all the details of that. But what we need to do is create opportunities that will be approachable by both developers and homeowners. The issue here is that we're one crisis, one financial crisis, one health crisis away from losing our housing security. No one should have to deal with that. So what we need to do is create opportunities where ownership can be captured right away. I foresee cooperatives, housing cooperatives. My elderly mother and stepfather in California are co-owners in a housing cooperative. This gives them a dynamic housing environment that allows them to have ownership, and that ownership is very important because not only does it give them security, but it gives them an ability to pass on that equity to future generations.
So I agree that there is a lot of good work being done by a lot of really good people in our community, but what the point in time census numbers from this January tell us is that it's not good enough. It's not getting the job done, and we have to do more. This problem is very deep and very wide. It's a bundle of problems. I think you've heard pieces of that from the other three candidates. It's hitting our most vulnerable folks, from our fixed income seniors to our students. What was shocking to me when I learned this from someone that I knocked on their door in Tumwater, and their sister works for the North Thurston School District, informing me of the number of homeless, considered homeless students within our school system. I looked deeper into those numbers and found that not only was he absolutely right, but the new numbers had come out and they were worse. Over 1,600 students, that's considered to have unstable housing and even unsheltered. It's absolutely heartbreaking. So we have to employ a range of strategies, from additional shelter space to day center space to prevention of folks. There's folks in our community who are so rent burdened, and it's a very cost-effective strategy to prevent people from falling into homelessness, because then it's hard to get out. So whether it's rental assistance programs, pulling together all the strategies, the experts will tell us that government cannot solve this problem alone. We need the private sector to, as Jed was saying, to increase the affordable housing stock so that prices are across the range. And it's not just, the cheapest. You need more housing. You need, as we learned in a recent forum, we need 2,000 units per year. We're getting about 1,400 a year over the last 6 years, meaning we're falling deeper and deeper into a lack of supply. And we have mismatched zoning in certain areas of our county where the population is, the average size of the household in our county is falling, but we're not properly zoned for the kind of housing we need. So we've got to look all around this problem and get to work.
Thank you. So our second question is going to refer to these comments. Senior programs such as delivered meals, falls prevention, and caregiver support keep older adults healthy, secure, and independent in their own homes. Senior centers offer a sense of community and fight the isolation which is proven to cause premature death and depression. These programs and services help families juggling elder care and other responsibilities and keep seniors out of emergency rooms and hospitals. Yet the services that support senior centers are drastically underfunded. Funding for both county and donor-centered organizations such as United Way are focused on youth and family. As a commissioner, what would you do here in Thurston County to reverse the downward trend in support of aging services and make overdue investments in programs that support seniors' health and economic security?
It's a lot.
All right, that's it.
So first thing I want to say is just that I agree with all of those sentiments, and all of those programs are absolutely vital to our community. One of the things you get to do as a candidate is to go out and go to fundraisers, go to presentations, go to community groups, and just learn about all the different things that are going on in the community that you might not have known before. And I've been to a couple of presentations regarding some of the programs that Claire referred to, and just almost tears coming down your face when you see they show videos sometimes of some of the folks who are helped by these programs, and it's amazing. So we want to support those programs. I get 2 minutes to answer this, and I think that I'll just make the point that our budget in Thurston County, we have to have money to make these investments. The money has to come from somewhere. When we're spending more money than we're bringing in the county, that's not going to provide us the resources we need to invest in these programs. So what I want to do is sit down and work on our budget, get it back in the black, and then we can sit down and talk about where that money ought to go. But I have a lot of ideas about that. I don't know if there'll be a question about that, but money we spend on justice, money we're not accessing from state and federal government. Housing plays into this because the county is dependent on sales tax revenue. When people are rent burdened, they don't have money to spend in our businesses. There are a lot of pieces. We really need to look at our budget though if we're going to have the resources to spend on these programs, and I'm absolutely committed to that.
So again, this is an issue that affects all of us. Primarily senior services affect the entire community because you all are elderly. You all are the generation that we need to respect and care for. If that is not intrinsically stitched into our operation and management, then we have an issue. So I'm glad that we have an opportunity to talk about this. Tye's right, this is a revenue issue, so we have to find new revenue streams. I have a couple of ideas about that, not only to reduce the spending in areas that was mentioned before, but also to bring dynamic new approaches in acquiring revenue. Some of the things I brought up, access to food. We have a large agricultural sector in this county. It needs to expand. But where do they sell their food? There's not enough farmers markets. Now, how do you get to those farmers markets? There's not enough transit. There's not enough affordable transit, and there's not enough services stitched in around that. So I propose county involvement through public development authorities. Now, take a step from a public development authority, because Pike Place Market in Seattle is one type of public development authority, where the public funds are stitched into a commerce marketplace. It serves a public service, and at the end of the day, the community funds are managed and taken care of. So in my years of business development through the cannabis sector, I actually stumbled upon a public development authority down in North Bonneville, a little city in Olympia County of 1,000 people, that are effectively operating a cannabis retail store through a public development authority. Now, this cannabis retail store is predominantly medical, and a city of 1,000 people brings in over $120,000 a year off of one store. Now, I went to the state legislature and asked them to replicate this model last year, and I'm still working on that. But as a county commissioner, I would like to see that implemented in our county, and hopefully see 4 to 6 of those stores, and that be a new revenue stream in our county.
This situation as far as the senior centers and the seniors, you gotta look back at the children and look at the growth population, what is coming to be in the next generation. I think it starts with housing, and that always need a roof over your head to be able to thrive. And that's where I would like to take this, and all the centers that come along with that. I think there's several here in Thurston County, but there'll be more as far as needed. Those are the hubs that get people into the homes and keep them thriving as far as health, transportation, and being able to participate back into the community. And it's a great role model. I sit on the Inner City Transit Board. We are fervently in favor of keeping transportation up and going and running with every dollar and every dime we have there in terms of making sure seniors are able to get around with dollar lift, buses, or what have you. I think transportation is huge also. But the housing, under the Housing Action Team, in 2019, I'll start a new organization that for high time that we talk about senior housing and how it works or doesn't work here in Thurston County. Whether it be small houses or community houses, but it is an issue that's coming around the corner. It's not just a revenue issue, but it's a community issue, and everybody needs to participate in terms of being part of the solution. We have a great community here, and you'll see that change.
You probably heard the term crowdsource, and it's been a little while since you said a very complex question, and we've heard a lot of fairly complex answers, and it's a complex thing. I think that I'm just going to talk mainly about fundamentals, and that is that the people who are most vulnerable, which we are able-bodied enough and healthy enough to be in this room together, so those who are more vulnerable than we are And that is particularly including our elderly, but also including people who are ill, people who are very young, like the school children that Tye mentioned. We need, as a community, as a country, as a county, to make sure that we take care of those people first. If we don't, then we are losing our very soul. We are losing what makes it worth living here. People need to have those resources. The things that were mentioned in the question statement about how important it is for community, for people to have hope, that is really vital to elders, but it's vital to everyone. You need to feel like your kids are safe, like your grandkids are safe, like there's a place that you can be together. And these are some of the things that are threatened by, for instance, the homelessness issue, where I've had a number of people tell me that they are afraid to come downtown. And it's not because they hate the people who are using the services downtown, but they are afraid. And then that's hard on the businesses, and that's the goose that lays the golden egg, is to have that revenue source. And it's really hard on everybody. But that's the same exact coin as the other side, is we need to be compassionate to those who have the least. So finding the ways to make sure that those resources are safe, that those things are priorities, is something that you do need to be able to trust your county commissioners with, and I believe I'm worthy of that trust.
All right, so we'll keep you going here. Question 3. Media reports reveal ongoing efforts to greatly reduce the Medicaid program, a critically needed program that assists very low-income seniors. Yet half of Medicare beneficiaries have incomes below $24,500, and on the average pay more than $5,000 annually out of pocket for their health care needs. These seniors often face impossible decisions each month as to whether they're going to spend it on their limited income on medicine, food, or rent. As a commissioner, what can you do to support seniors struggling in Thurston County due to health care costs and/or long-term care needs? Tough question.
Yeah, it's a tough question. It almost makes me cry. My parents are both on Medicaid. I feel extremely strongly about what's going on in Washington, D.C. Remember what I said about why I'm running. I am appalled at the steps that are being taken now. I think we as a country need to do something about that. That is, Medicaid, of course, is a federal program, and I'm, as a county commissioner, not going to be in direct control of what happens with that. However, the impacts are that we need to do more in our community, and we can step up. We do step up. I'm the legal counsel for the Olympia Free Clinic. So that's one of the things that we can do, is band together medical providers, these wonderful angels of people, provide services to those who have no health care. Having to make a decision between your medicine and your food is obscene. I was thrilled to hear about the food bank. One of the things that was at an organizational thing, getting the Lacey Food Bank started, which I was very excited about. The gentleman who was running it said that they've changed their philosophy, and they don't wait until somebody falls so far down and then try and bring them back up to a level of poverty. They try and help everybody who needs it, and if you are short on rent money or can't fix your car so you can get to work that month, come to the food bank. Get your food. Don't spend that money on your food budget. Spend it on the thing you have to stay in your home or to feed your kids. So I really appreciate the steps that are being taken by our local organizations. The county has a limited budget, but as a few of us have mentioned, the health department is the county. It's a county-wide thing, including in the cities. And that is a strategy and funding and a way that we can influence healthier lives for all the citizens, and being healthier means you need less health care.
So the county does have a role in this in terms of helping out with Medicaid and care. Some of the things that I've been able to do since I've been in office is to open up a Thurston Mesa Behavioral Health Organization. That doesn't, we take in Medicaid recipients, but we do that in 2 forms. One is an evaluation treatment center, which is open and free to people to go to. The other is the triage center. But when you go to the triage center, you have a law enforcement element involved in this. And the other aspect of that is the substance abuse that goes with that. We have the Thurston County Behavioral Health Organization helps in that way also. The point I'm trying to make is that there's other ways that help, and not only directly or indirectly, to help reduce the cost between medicine and or your house, your room, your boarding. And so those are open to the people, and I've been able to support that and build those pieces there. She's absolutely right. It's a federal program, so we do not have that much legislative control over it. But we do have a state that does support something like that. So I join in with legislation locally to be able to advocate and legislatively able to reduce the cost of prescriptions and other entities involved in the Medicaid program. So that's the best way to do it.
I might sound like a broken record, but I'm going to bring up medical cannabis again. The reason I do is because my mother, who's 73 years old, just came off of 7 medications by the use of CBD, the non-psychoactive form of cannabis. Now, I bring this up because she was able to get off those 7 medications, and at the same time, she was able to have a healthier way of life and a healthier lifestyle because of it. It's an issue that hits home. Second factor to that, we just established an opiate crisis in our county. Since 2015, we have known that in areas where medical cannabis is available, in states where medical cannabis is available, that there is an over 25% reduction in opiate-related deaths. That means that there is an issue to access for medicinal therapeutic benefit. Now, we have a lot of federal issues, as was mentioned before, even with Medicare, but this is an opportunity where we can service our communities, and again, stemming back to driving a revenue stream that then stems back into economically supporting our services that are currently in place and expanding those services. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it's a wild part of my dynamic solution of bringing some benefits to our county where we need to have some more revenue. Beyond that, though, we need to have a wild voice, an advocate inside of the commission. I might be a wild voice, but an advocate inside of the commission to make sure that even though there is a federal or an ideology that's being promoted, we need to protect that ideology at home, and I will resist that.
Well, as a number of folks have said, it's a federal program, and one thing we can do is support politicians, candidates that are supportive of these programs, because we know how important they are. It's implicit in the question, and I agree with that, and I will always do that, and it's something that we need to be mindful of. Housing, I go back to because, as I talked about, folks in our community that are rent burdened, if you're spending 50% of your income on housing, you do not have the available resources to deal with your medical expenses. So they go hand in hand. Mental health, Mr. Blake brought up, and I'm glad he did, because this is an area we really have to work hard on. It's connected to many pieces of our community and problems that we're facing. I learned, even as a criminal defense attorney, I didn't realize until I started this campaign that 45% of the folks in our jail have a mental health diagnosis. So you don't have to think very far down the chain to realize what that's doing to our budget, to our jail, the fact that we're spending money to house people in other places because our open model of our jail doesn't account for it being a mental health hospital. So there's so many connections here that are doubling back on the more vulnerable members of our community, such as seniors who are struggling with healthcare costs. And where I can't affect those costs directly, I can work indirectly on all the other pieces of our community's health that county commissioners deal with directly. So that would be my approach.
Okay. We're going to give you something that's going to apply to everyone now as far as the question is concerned. It has to do about the environment. Many seniors are concerned about the environment, including air quality and water quality. How would you plan on managing the growth of our community while maintaining the environmental standards that ensure that our county remains healthy and desirable place to live?
Well, I love this question. This issue might have been the #1 issue that propelled me to want to run for county commissioner. I don't think we have the right balance right now, a balanced approach in terms of conservation and property rights as we grow, and it's going to become more acute, this problem, because we are growing so fast. I've been endorsed by Sierra Club South Sound and the Thurston environmental voters. They've vetted me very carefully in questionnaires and long interviews about my commitment to environmental issues. Clean water is one of the primary pieces of my platform. We have degraded water quality in every corner of this county, from low oxygen in Butt Inlet to high nitrogen in the Deschutes watershed, to streams polluted by stormwater runoff, to toxic algae in our lakes. We have got to make this a top priority. And as we grow, then we're dealing with water availability, we're dealing with growth management, good growth management, responsible growth management. These all play together. We have 54,000 septic systems in Thurston County. We know they're the #1 cause of water quality on the Deschutes watershed. We know they are contributing to toxic algae in Summit Lake and some other problems, yet our county commissioners repealed that program. Mr. Blake said at the time it wasn't the county's business. He has recently said that it was a staff building exercise and they're going to be looking at the program in August. So I guess it is the county's business now. This is absolutely a critical issue that we have to address. And environmental priorities will always be very foremost in my consideration of growth and county business. So appreciate the question.
Well, our environment is the greatest resource we have, and we must be diligent in protecting that resource long-term. Great points that were brought up. On my platform under environmental management, as I brought up, my father was an environmental scientist, graduated from Evergreen. So he worked specifically on pesticide and organophosphate issues. Anyway, I'll digress into that. That was his life's work. But conservation district support is one of my platform pieces. We need to support the conservation district and ensure that we continue a cooperative relationship with that. Climate change preparation, the majority of our county, especially the northern tip of the district, has a seaboard. So we have to be concerned about that. We have to be concerned about the development that we do inside of these areas, especially thinking 20, 40, 50 years out in advance. Expansion of public parks. That's a really one that's close to my heart because on my leisure time and my recreation, I like to be close to home, go out here to a county park or a city park and make sure that I can enjoy that and my local community members can enjoy that as well. And then again, going back into future development, we need to incentivize through sustainability credits. So no matter what that development looks like, whether it be affordable housing or business development, we need to make sure that the development doesn't overly impact the environment that is being put in place. Obviously, the people are coming. 100,000 people is a lot of people. They're coming. We need to be prepared for this, and we need to protect our environment in the process. Thank you.
In the past 4 years, I've been very successful in doing some things environmentally that have never been done in 12 years earlier. First and foremost, we opened up some parks. The Deschutes Falls Park had not been open for 25 years. They were funding that immediately in the first 3 years I was there. We're currently going with salmon passages and fish passages. We have 5 a year for the next 30 years. That's not been done either. There's also a Supreme Court ruling out there from tribal standpoint to do this, and Thurston County is #1 in doing that. And I'm proud to say that we just opened up one, ribbon cutting on one the other day. The other one is the Henderson Inlet. Water quality is pertinent and paramount to every single one of us sitting in this room in this county, no matter what ideology you belong to, or where you live or work and play. Henderson Inlet is the model that we use instead of adopting the septic plan. We do not adopt the $10 fee to go along with that, but we did adopt the plan. I intend to take that plan and go across the other inlets and get the same standard that Henderson Inlet is, but Butt Inlet, Totten Inlet, and Elk Inlet. And that way we don't have to worry as much with the septic on those as you would in the south, where there's only about 100 failed septics in the south part of the county. It does not have any contamination whatsoever tied to any water contamination as we know it today. So I'm more worried about the open waters and the inlets that I am in the South County right now, and that's the direction I plan to go with.
As you you can tell, Tye is very expert and very passionate about this, and I really appreciate his knowledge and the fact that we're both Democrats, and I agree with him on almost all of that. So I appreciate the expertise of the experts, and that's where I'm coming from. We have incredibly complex and intertwined subjects that we've talked about. Every one of these subjects talks about and is intertwined with the other. Environment is crucial. Why? Those of us who moved here, I moved here 30 years ago. Why did we move here? I can tell you that a lot of it was probably because of what this place is, and a lot of what's so valuable and beautiful about this place is our gorgeous environment, our safe environment, our pleasant environment, and it is not be taken for granted, and it's another safety issue. And I want to mention that because safety is something that gets us going. We're afraid of losing Medicare. We're afraid of not having housing. We're afraid of our environment being destroyed. And that can make people clamp down and not be open to new ideas, to just be huddled and hunkered down and fearful. And I believe that we need to have hope. We need to work and find solutions. I am, for want of a better word, I'm a technology nut. I love technology stuff. And so I'm always looking at different solutions for things in technology. And I'm really hopeful that there may be some solutions for things in new technologies, artificial intelligence, things that come along. And I am very well versed in that, very comfortable in that milieu, and I'm ready and willing to keep my eyes open for that. We need to use experts like Tye and like other people who we have wonderful resources, and we need to keep working on this issue very carefully and assiduously.
Thank you, Melissa. Well, right now, candidates, you have an opportunity to have a 2-minute closing statement, and we'll start with you, Melissa.
Okay, my last swan song here. I am very grateful to you for being here, for being concerned citizens, for listening carefully, for trying to do your best as a citizen to participate in your government by voting, by being here, by caring. I encourage you to be even more involved. Get involved in campaigns. One of the other candidates, I think it was Tye, mentioned, we need to work at the federal level. We need to work at the state level. We need to care. We cannot let somebody else be in charge of our lives. That's what this democracy is about. And so many people, like I was just talking about, get fearful and they just shut down. They don't want to think about it, don't want to look at it. But there is reason for hope. There are ways that we can and will make things better, but we need to work together to do it, and you need to do your part and be involved and find a candidate or find an issue that you can help with, because it's so important. I already voted. I was so proud. I think I was the first person in Thurston County to vote. I couldn't wait. I could vote for myself. First time. Woo! So it was really great. But please do vote, especially in the primary, because too few people vote in the primary. A tiny number of people in this county and in this state and in this country make the decisions for our whole country because of people who don't take their part and don't take it responsibly. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it very much. I believe I'm the best qualified candidate. I do ask for your vote, and I hope I will be your next county commissioner.
For the past 4 years, I've been your county commissioner, and I've absolutely served you in the best capacity possible. I'm very qualified because I use competence and experience as my main way of handling the problem. You sit at my table, we have a discussion no matter where you sit on any issue, and we talk it through. I believe in the bottom line up front. Anybody who comes to the table knows that's exactly what I ask you first. And then we go straight to resourcing and how we're going to execute what we're looking for as far as community issues or problems. I love serving the public. It's been my pleasure for the last 25 years at the federal level and the last 4 years at the local level. And that's where change really happens at the local level. I have seen so many good changes happen in terms of health care, mental health, substance abuse, women and children being taken care of. Finally, it's been high time that happens. And in terms of roads and bridges, the county commissioners do that also. You need to be able to travel and get to the places you need to do leisurely and at work and what have you. Thurston County is number one in my book, and I plan to continue advertising us throughout the state as being the best, and that's why people want to come here and live and play and work. I want your vote, and I need your vote to be able to continue on. I'm not I'm always using the facts and numbers to really guide us to where we want to go in terms of things and accomplishing the things we need to do as a community. And I look forward to serving you 4 more years.
Well, lot in the process, but the goal was to identify as a progressive independent and to bring my values to the conversation. As a progressive independent, I do not necessarily go with a party ideology. I go with more of my values. I've been an active voter since 2012. I intermittently voted prior to that. But as a younger person, as a newer voter, as somebody with maybe wild progressive values to some perceptions, it's important that we reach out to all generations to encourage them to know that you have to have county commissioners that represent all walks of life. So even though I have brought up some wildly progressive perspectives, I also recognize that as a commissioner, it's my job to listen to all members of the community and to find solutions. And that's what I'm bringing to the table. I'm a small business owner. As an entrepreneur, I'm constantly solving problems for myself, for my business, and for those around me. That's currently what I do. That's how I make my money. I find solutions for individuals. Right now I'm running a campaign for raising standards around laboratory analysis for cannabis. I find solutions and I implement those solutions. I brought up some solutions to you. I encourage you to find out more about me at voteforjed.com. You can also email me at jed@voteforjed.com with any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Please inquire more. I'll be around to interact with. But again, I may be younger, I may be new to the political arena, but I have some great ideas and I'd love to talk to you about them.
Folks, we're living in troubling times. The federal government is moving us backwards on every single issue that we care about. We need our local governments to step forward and assert bold leadership. And that's what I'm asking voters to do in this election, is to choose bold leadership for Thurston County. If I'm elected, the County Commission will once again have a progressive voice. I've been endorsed by Olympia Indivisible, by the state and local Green parties, by Our Revolution Thurston, by the Washington State Progressive Caucus. It will once again have a Democratic voice. I've been endorsed by LD32 and LD35 Democrats and the Thurston County Young Democrats. We will have a voice for conservation. As I mentioned, I've been endorsed by Sierra Club South Sound and the Thurston Environmental Voters. We will have a voice for labor. I've been endorsed by the State Employees Union, the Tumwater Firefighters Union, the Carpenters Union, the Drywallers Union, and the Thurston Lewis Mason Central Labor Council. We will have a voice for education. I'm proud to have been endorsed by the Regional Washington Education Association, involving all of your local teachers unions. Very dear to me as a teacher's kid. And we will have a voice for women. I've been even endorsed by the Thurston County Democratic Women. And I'm proud of each and every one of these endorsements, including over 25 elected and former elected officials, State Representative Beth Doglio, Port Commissioner E.J. Zita, Mayor Pete Comet of Tumwater, 11 members of our municipal city councils in Thurston County, because they know that we desperately need new leadership in Thurston County, and they know that I will be a passionate advocate for sound financial management, collaborative problem solving, and careful stewardship of our natural resources. My name is Tye Menser. I'm running for the Board of County Commissioners, and I am asking for your vote in August and November. Thank you.
Okay, folks. Before we dismiss you, we have a few minutes that we have for some questions from the floor. So you want to take about 30 seconds, Jed? You can still have some time.
As a small business owner, really, recently there was a report that came out that Tumwater is actually 4th in the nation to have the worst job market. That's a huge issue, right? So my main goal is not just for a revenue stream for the county, that's all I was talking about for public development authority, but for small business owners and for the job market, we need to find ways where individuals can market for themselves as a small business owner or expand business opportunity around them, right? And there are many ways to do this, but specifically we have to find ways to incentivize business development around commercial development and put that in places where folks don't have to travel 5 miles to get to said commercial development. And then, as you mentioned, commuting, right? Improve the ways where we can traffic. Our commerce has to traffic. Majority of our tax revenue in the county comes out of commerce in the city of Olympia, so we have to find those problems, solve those problems.
I'd go for a minute.
Oh, excuse me. Should I
Okay.
finish?
Did you take a minute? You did, yes.
I did take an excuse.
You did.
Okay, quickly. So in the last commissioner election, it wasn't Mr. Blakes, it was Mr. Edwards, Mr. Hutchings. Their message on economic development was that regulations were strangling the Thurston County economy. I've gone through statistics from the Economic Development Council on trends, and the data does not back that up. We are growing, building is happening, and permits are at record highs, and so we just need to be mindful of how we're growing. We don't want to become I grew up in a veteran community, and I don't want Thurston County to become like that. So we have to encourage jobs here so people are staying local. That's also good for the climate, it's good for our communities, it's good for our infrastructure costs. We also have to be mindful of how we grow, because poverty among households with children in our county has been spiking in the last couple of years. So it's not just growing, it's how we grow and making sure we're not leaving sectors of our community behind. The EDC has a lot of great ideas about specific things, such as creating an innovations, marketing Thurston County as an innovation center since we're so close to the capital, working with other neighboring jurisdictions on bigger projects that could create employment opportunities for Thurston County. I'm supportive of all of that. Next, my red card is up.
Yeah, absolutely. In the past, has not been a very good economic turn from 2008 to 2014. We are high time that Thurston County has that chance to be able to do that. We are a capital county, and I think tourism needs to be tapped into. Not only that, but we have the Bountiful Byway, the Tourism Board, and other things that help promote those who come through and see the greatness of Thurston County and the reputation we leave them with. Another thing is certain sectors of industry come here. Obviously, we have the state, but the medical industries and other small businesses that are thriving. We need to continue to not only protect them and retain them, but keep them for generations and generations on and on. And so you have my commitment for that to happen, and we need those jobs.
It's a great one, and it's not what I was asking for, so that's why we can address it, at least not directly. I did mention the difficulties of the two-sided coin of people not wanting to come downtown, and then the businesses suffer because they don't have customers, or at least the people who are around them don't have money to pay for their wares, and it's a very big difficulty for those folks. But I also want to tell you about something that's a ray of shining hope. I was so excited yesterday. I went to lunch with the West Olympia Business Association. And even though I owned a business in West Olympia, I didn't know about it. But it was about the breweries. And there's a brewery program starting up at SPSCC. It's so exciting. They're going to really build up. They have facilities being built, and they are going to teach people how to do brewing. We're going to have a whole bunch of that here. I asked the questions about, are we going to be responsible for this demon rum and not have all these people besotted on the streets? And there are actually indeed concerns about that and care. I'm very excited about that.
Okay, let's give a big hand to our